My esteemed guest today is founder and former chairman and CEO of Abrams Artists Agency, Harry Abrams, who always knew that he wanted to pursue a career in the entertainment industry as a talent agent. Now, in 1958, he joined MCA Artists, which was then a talent agency, started in the mailroom for $40 a week, and quickly rose through the ranks. Now, he remained at MCA until 1962, and it was at this time that Mr. Abrams and an MCA co-worker decided to start their own specialized talent agency named Abrams-Rubaloff Associates in Los Angeles. But by 1977, Abrams-Rubaloff Associates had risen to become the top talent agency of its kind throughout the country. Now, Mr. Abrams, being the driving force behind the agency, he and his partner went their separate ways, and he went on to form what we now know as Abrams Artists Agency. He made unknown stars into superstars, people like Carl Weathers and Jaclyn Smith and Liam Neeson, Jason Alexander, even Jennifer Lopez and William H. Macy, and even today's stars like Sterling K. Brown and Michael B. Jordan, as well as Chandra Wilson, and so many others. And we can literally name drop all day. But Mr. Abrams is here with his brand new book, Let's Do Launch. A Hollywood agent dishes on how to make your business and career take off. So without further ado, let's welcome one of the legendary movers and shakers inside television, film, theater, and more, the one and the only Harry Abrams, to the show. Welcome, Mr. Abrams.
Thank you. Good introduction there, Ward. I like that.
Well, you are very, very welcome. And I've read your book from cover to cover, but it starts out with you sitting in New York with a phone, a yellow pad and a pen, and no clients. Then you get a phone call from Bill Haber from CAA. Sounded like a miracle, but was it?
It really wasn't. He had read in the press, in the trades, the Hollywood Reporter or the Daily Variety, that Rubaloff, Noel Rubaloff, Noel was his first name. He and I had split up, and I was running our New York office at the time, and I was now on my own. I didn't have any clients. I didn't have any business. I had nothing, literally. It was a few days after this occurred, and he called me. Bill Haber was one of the founding partners of Creative Artists Agency, and he said, "Harry, I read that you and Noel are no longer together." And I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, we would like to bring you on and hire you to run our New York office. We don't have a New York office at the moment. And your background, your clientele, and your experience and years in the business would be very attractive to us." And I said, "Well, listen, I'll be candid with you. I'm not interested in becoming an employee." He said, "Well, I wasn't calling you about that. If you were going to open a New York office for us, we wanted you to become our partner. There were 5 guys that had started CAA. We wanted you to become our 6th partner." I said, "Well, that sounds interesting to me. However, I must admit to you that I've been in business with another partner, just one fellow. That's a 50-50 partnership. There were the 2 of us over the past several years, and it hasn't gone that terrific. So how am I going to survive with 5 other partners for all intents and purposes?" He said, "Well, listen, why don't you allow us to fly you to Los Angeles? Come out here, meet us. We'll chat, we'll talk. You'll get to know us. You'll get to know all about us. And perhaps we can persuade you to the contrary and have you come and join us." And say, "Well, listen, an all-expense paid trip to California was attractive to me, so let's go." So I flew out. I spent 5 days with him. Over the 5 days, I met with all the other 5 guys. We chatted, we talked, we went to lunch, we went to breakfast, went to dinner. We had a good time. However, at the conclusion of that 5 days, I made that decision to not go ahead with CAA and start out on my own without any partners, just me, Harry Abrams. And that's what I did. And I've never looked back since then.
Yeah, that's the thing I noticed about reading your book, you always found a way to keep moving forward. You didn't let the past dictate the future, and you just moved ahead because, if you went with CAA, that would have been the easy way out, but you knew what you wanted and you went after it.
Yeah, I'm always interested in competing. Uh, I, excuse me there for a second. I really have a good deal of confidence in myself over the years because at that point I was much older, but I'd started as a kid earning a living and on a paper route, and that turned into a paper corner, and that turned into things beyond that. But I always was interested. I had confidence in myself. I studied business. Excuse me.
Yeah.
I studied business graduated with a business degree out of UCLA, and I felt that I could, make a living. And so I always had, I refused to let anything get in my way.
Well, you prove that in your book, and you have a statement in your book that I would love for you to answer because so many people have big dreams of going to Hollywood and making it big, but what does it actually mean making it in Hollywood?
Well, making it in Hollywood indicates that means that you're well known to the artistic end of Hollywood, which would be performers, actors, writers, directors, producers, networks, television stations, radio stations, studios, production companies, etc. And that all these people would know you and know of you, have heard your name, maybe have even done business with you, and you're in demand, and the phone just doesn't stop ringing. People are calling to meet you, talk to you, interview you, find out what sort of artists you're representing, and hopefully try to negotiate deals where they can acquire the services of these various and sundry artists. So that to me is what I call making it big. Anyway, so I hope that answers your question.
That does. And in your book, you wrote, and I quote, "People don't care about the absence of your solutions. They care about the problems and the pain that they face in their lives and what you can do to help them." How did that help your career and professional relationships in Hollywood?
Well, it's quite frankly, it's almost like being a therapist for all intents and purposes, or a doctor, a physician. You're helping them relieve their well, I guess relieve their pain, so to speak, but relieve their doubts, their insecurities, their lack of confidence in themselves, and that's what I did. I reassured them. I felt that they had, I instilled confidence in their minds and their heads. I proved it by putting them to work, negotiating deals for them, which were very large deals, and some of them were small deals, but at least they gave the confidence to the artist. Gee, there is a place for me. There is employment for me. There is work for me. And this man, Harry Abrams, has been able to at least articulate it to me, but he's gone ahead and proven it.
Well, back in the late 1950s, you were in Indiana. Then you get a letter from William Morris, but you turned it down. You called it a calculated risk. Why?
Well, I was living in, I had applied for a position in the training program at the William Morris Agency and also at MCA, the other talent agency. MCA was actually larger than William Morris, and had been in business longer than the William Morris Agency. William Morris was named after a man named Bill Morris. Anyway, I had applied for a position in the training programs at both of these respective companies. I had just gotten out of college. I'd been in the military. I'd been in the service for 6 months. I just gotten out of the service. I had gone to work. I applied for positions at those two agencies, and there was nothing open at the time. I wrote them letters of introduction, and I was able to secure meetings and with them and with some of their executives. And they told me at the end of the conclusion of this process, which took a couple of months, that I had passed all of their tests and that I would be a potential employee for all intents and purposes. However, they didn't have a position open at the moment. And not only that, but there had been many, many people who'd gone through the same process that I had, and that they had, each of these respective agencies had approved. So they put them on a list in descending order, descending from the date that they passed all of the tests. And as their names came up, they would these two agencies would approach these prospects. I was being one of them, and offer them a job in the training in their training program. Now, their training program at the time at both the agencies was in what they called the mailroom. You entered the agency and you started working in the mailroom, distributing mail, picking up mail, et cetera, and doing just whatever odd jobs that needed to be done. And so I was put on a list, and I said, well, when will my name rise to the top of the list? And they said, well, we can't tell you. And I said, a month, 6 months, a year, 2 years? Well, we just can't tell you, they would respond. So I said, well, okay, put my name on the list, and let me hear from you when my name rises to the top of the list. By the way, the entry-level starting salary in the mailroom in those days was $40 a week. And the week was not defined as a 40-hour week. Week could have been 80 or 100 hours for all intents and purposes. So I applied for a position for $40 a week, agreed to have my name put on a list. And what happened is months went by, months went by, and one day my family, which was my original home address in Los Angeles, I was now working in Richmond, Indiana, in a power lawnmower company. My name rose to the top list, and my mother got a letter from the William Morris Agency, and she called me to tell me there's a letter here addressed to you from the William Morris Agency. I said, well, open it up. And she opened it up and said, Dear Harry, your name has risen to the top of the list. We have a position open for you. You have 72 hours to accept the position or not. If you don't take the job, we're going to move on to the next person, obviously on the list. I said, quite frankly, let me think about it for a day or two, which I did. They allowed me to think about it. I got back to them within 72 hours. And it turned out that the meetings that I had had at MCA over a year ago, the caliber and the quality of the agents that I met and the people and the surroundings and their history was much more attractive to me than the William Morris Agency. So I took a calculated risk and I turned the job down. But before I turned the job down, I also called MCA to be sure that my name was still on the list of approved applicants. And they said it was. I asked them again, any idea when I'll hear from you? We can't tell you. So I took that calculated risk and turned the job down at the William Morris Agency. That's my response to your question.
Well, in your book, you state that many today play the short game, but it takes courage to play the long game. Explain.
Um, well, the short game would be immediate recognition of your talents, and also with immediate increases in your salary, immediate adding responsibilities that were greater, were larger, were more interesting. Uh, those were all part of uh, the long game, so to speak. But I was very patient. I still have a great deal of patience, and decided to wait and see whether I get a call, or whether my name would ever rise to the list, on the top of the list at MCA, like they told me it would. But of course, I didn't have anything in writing that said that, or I didn't have a date that they could point out to me. So I took the calculated risk of waiting. Anyway, the same was true at the agency. When you went to work in the mailroom, the tasks were not that challenging, needless to say. But I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the people that I worked around, my associates in the mailroom, the people that I worked with who were in the agency in Los Angeles, in New York. I really felt that I would be best served if I would I was patient, and I decided to apply that.
Well, in 1962, I know that MCA was broken up by the government because they were a talent agency and a TV movie production studio. You didn't see the breakup as a setback, but as an opportunity. What did you see that others didn't?
Well, yes, MCA was eventually broken up by, I think Robert Kennedy was the Attorney General at the time, and the agency had Lou Wasserman, who was running MCA at the time, had acquired Universal Pictures. He bought that company for several $1 million. And he bought the studio, he bought the real estate, he bought all the library of films, he bought everything that they had to offer. And so suddenly they now found themselves in the motion picture and television production business. And they were buying all of their talent, all of their artistic talent, whether it were writers, directors, actors. They were buying them from themselves, from the parent company, from MCA, the talent agency, much to the dismay of the competitors, the talent agency competitors like the William Morris Agency and another agency called ICM, International Creative Management. And so those agencies felt that MCA was in violation of the Sherman-Clayton Antitrust Act, which is one that states that describes that form of business as a monopoly. And so those two agencies got together and they filed a lawsuit with the government against MCA. And it took 2 years, almost 2 years, for that case to make its way through the courts. As they say, the wheels of justice grind very slowly. And eventually, Robert Kennedy was the Attorney General, Jack Kennedy was the president, and they finally came to the conclusion that they were a monopoly, and they advised MCA, you either have to choose to stay in one business or the other, either stay in the talent agency business or stay in the motion picture and television production business, but you can't do both. Well, the amount of income, revenue for MCA and the talent agency business was a small portion versus what they were earning in motion picture and television production. So it was an easy decision for MCA to choose. Said we're going to stay in the motion picture and television production business. But part of the directive from Robert Kennedy's division or department was that you couldn't fire or terminate all of your employees. There was maybe, several hundred, perhaps even 1,000 employees across around the globe at MCA at the time. And they advised them you have to offer all of your employees an opportunity to go to work in motion picture and television production. So we couldn't fire you as talent agents. And so everyone was offered, including myself, an opportunity to go into motion picture and television production. And I was one of the few, and this other gentleman, Noel Rubaloff, and I decided we were going to take the chance. And all of our clientele that we had been representing at MCA were not going to be represented any longer by us or by MCA. They were going to be represented by people like the William Morris Agency and other competitors. So we felt this was a golden opportunity to take our clientele. We had maybe 20, 30, maybe 40, don't remember how many clients. They didn't know anyone else. They'd been working with us for some years. And so they readily agreed, once we opened our own business, to become clients of ours. So that was the opportunity that presented itself, and why I decided not to go into motion picture and television production.
Well, in your book, you used actress Jaclyn Smith as the perfect example of preparing oneself before opportunity knocks. What did she do that we should all be doing now?
Well, the story about Jaclyn Smith is I was representing talent in those days in radio and television advertising commercials, and in the daytime live television area, hosts, game shows, audience participation shows, quiz shows, representing hosts, MCs, etc. And what happened with her, I obviously had an eye for talent, and my wife and I were living in New York at the time. We went over to Central Park to have a picnic on a weekend, and on that particular day, a group of girls put on a show. They were dancers. They put on a dancing show, half an hour. And they were girls who had come from around the country to have they had an interview coming up in the next week or two with the New York City Ballet, and they were interested in perhaps joining New York City Ballet Company. And she was one of them. She had come from Houston, Jaclyn Smith. She had a Houston Southern accent so thick you could cut it with a knife. Anyway, and she was there with the girls, and I joined her. We had a picnic with my I had two children at the time, two toddlers, one I guess about 4 or 5 years of age, and one about 2 years of age. Anyway, the eldest boy toddled over to this group of girls because they weren't more than 10 or 15 yards away from us where we were picnicking. And after about 10 minutes, I went over to rescue the girls from him because I'm sure he was bothering them. And this one girl had taken a liking to him. Her name was Jaclyn Smith. Actually, her name wasn't Jaclyn, it was Ellen Smith from Houston. I eventually helped her change her name to Jaclyn. Anyway, she had taken a liking to him, and there he was sitting on her lap, and I was just struck by her. She was all of about 19 or 20 years of age, struck by her beauty, and her manner, her demeanor was very appealing, very attractive. And I said to her, I realize you're here to audition for New York City Ballet, but if you don't get into the ballet company, Uh, I think he would be very good in the television commercial business and in the modeling business, basically, which is what television commercials were somewhat in those days. I said, here's my card. Uh, I'm not hitting on you, obviously, because, yeah, this is my son. My wife was 10 yards away with my other son. And if you don't get into New York City Ballet, give me a call, because I think we could try to get into business together and I can guide you. And 2 weeks later, she called me and said they had not taken her into the ballet company. And she came in to meet with me. I signed her to an agency representation contract, and the rest is history, as they say.
And a great history it has been for Jaclyn Smith. Now, in your book, you stated that Hollywood is a brutal business, but you never really played the whole brutal Hollywood game. You believe that trust was one of the most vital attributes that we can obtain. And I guess you were considered Mr. Nice Guy in Hollywood?
I was Mr. Nice, trustworthy guy.
I like
Uh,
that. I like that a lot because I know that, Hollywood is a tough business, but you have repped actors like Liam Neeson, Jason Alexander, even William H. Macy. They valued all types of acting jobs, including commercials. How important is it in this industry to be very versatile?
um, well, it's extremely important. Uh, by the way, you forgot to mention Jennifer Lopez is another one that I found and discovered and launched. Spent 2, 3 years with her. Uh, anyway, uh, it's obviously very, very important to be versatile, uh, and I always felt that an actor, uh, if they performed for 60 seconds, the commercials were 60 seconds, television commercials in those days, and you have 60 seconds to deliver a message uh, to the uh, to the viewers, and you got to come across as very straightforward, very honest, very believable, very direct. Uh, uh, you want to convince and persuade them in that 60 seconds that they should purchase the product. It's a television commercial, and uh, and I was able to do that with the talent that I represented. But after they had established themselves in television commercials, when they became a household name or household picture or portrait or whatever you want to call it, a household image of themselves, um, they then I would want to move them to the next step. The next step up the ladder would be perhaps working in motion pictures and or television and or the theater. Probably the theater first, and secondly, move on into motion pictures and television. And so I would uh, guide these people after they spent a year. And by the way, after you work as a commercial spokesperson on behalf of a product or a service for an extended period of time, several months, people began to know who you are and would recognize you on the street or would recognize you anywhere for all intents and purposes. So I felt they already had a reputation uh, and that they had created from television commercials. And so the next step up the line was to perhaps show to the viewing public, the people who watch television, watch feature pictures, that they were a solid actor and they could uh, perform and be very credible on camera in a acting capacity.
And that's what happened to Jaclyn Smith. She went from shampoo girl to Charlie Angels because I guess Aaron Spelling saw her in the commercials.
It was one day I got a call from Erin Spelling, she was doing commercials at the time, and I'm trying to remember the product. It was Gold Formula Breck, with Breck shampoo, a hair commercial. She had great hair, etc. And he said to his casting director, I'm looking for these 3 girls to be part of my television pilot, Charlie's Angels. I want to see that girl, the Breck girl. The girl who does the stuff for Breck. And the casting director tracked her down and found me, and she went in on for the audition. There were, I wouldn't say hundreds of girls, but there were maybe 20, 30, 40 actresses up for those 3 roles. And he offered one of the 3 Charlie's Angels jobs to Jaclyn Smith. And then she was off and running as an actress at that point. She's still around, by the way. She's still, here she is now in her 60s, and she's still gorgeous, very attractive, and has a wonderful manner about her, a wonderful style, a great voice. I had to send her to a dialect coach for a good several months to get rid of that southern accent, which we were able to do, a voice coach. And she's been able to work consistently. She now, in the past several years, she's been the image of Kmart. Kmart television commercials, radio commercials, billboards, outdoor advertising, direct sale, direct purchase, all of that. And she's become synonymous with Kmart.
You have a great story in your book about Chandra Wilson, who is the well-known actress that we know as Dr. Bailey on Grey's Anatomy. But you sent her in for the audition as the opposite of what the casting directors were looking for. It was a pretty bold move that paid off for you and Chandra. Can you kind of elaborate a bit on that?
Well, I'm one who takes chances. I've been known to do that, and I figured they should see Chandra Wilson. There were other roles that needed to be cast within the show, and I sent Chandra in on that audition, and they decided she wasn't right for the role that I thought she might be right for after I'd read the script, but they had another role, another character that they thought she might be right for, and they hired her to play that other character. Now, that show, what the hell's the name of it?
Grey's Anatomy?
Grey's Anatomy. That show is still on the air. Here she is, 27, 28 years later, Chandra Wilson, playing that same character. Needless to say, her salary has skyrocketed. She's become extremely well known to the viewing public, the viewers, and she not only acts and plays that character within the show, Chandra Wilson, but she also has taken to directing episodes of the television show. And so she, in a given season of maybe, 10, 20 episodes, she might direct 1 or 2 of them. And she's enjoyed that and liked that because it's obviously shown her artistic endeavors, her artistic talents in other areas besides on-camera performing or live performing. And she makes a ton of money, I can only tell you, after 26 episodes, 26 years of the show. And she's very happy, very content. I see her now and then. I don't run into her that often. She's not represented. I'm out of the talent agency, but as you haven't said that yet. But I sold my company 5 or 6 years ago. so I'm not in that business any longer.
That,
But I still keep up with some of the people now and then. Um, I'll tell you another quick story that might be of interest to you. Finding Jennifer Lopez was easy. Um, she was on a show called In Living Color, which was an hour variety show. Keenan Ivory Wayans was the host of the show, and she was on the show as what they call a fly girl in the industry. A fly girl means a dancer on a show. And we had another client of ours whose name fails me at the moment, who was a series regular on that show. She appeared once a week for 26 weeks when they, or no, it was live, so it was on 52 weeks a year. And this other talent was on the show, and I would go to the show once a week to be there and support our then client. And our commercial department said to me, Harry, we're looking for a Hispanic actress, attractive Hispanic actress who obviously spoke Spanish. Keep your eyes out in case you come across one. Well, there was Jennifer Lopez. I came across her on the show, and I asked her, might you be interested in getting into doing something beyond being a fly girl? And she said, well, of course. I brought her into the office. The agents, my associates, all bonded with her, and we took her on for representation. And within, I guess, 6 months, maybe a year, this opportunity, she went on to a scripted half-hour sitcom, the name of which fails me at the moment. But she was then off and running, needless to say.
yeah, she is definitely a global superstar now, and it's just amazing where some of these people began. But you got a great story in your book about actor, the late Carl Weathers, was a perfect example of having a client with a wide range of talents. Why is that important for actors today?
Um, well, obviously, the more diverse their talents are, the more opportunities would present themselves in different sorts of jobs. So when you're more than just an actor for what people know you as or have seen you as, when your talents are diverse, uh, they make you more marketable and more attractive, more saleable. And Carl Weathers was a former athlete, a football player, and we took him on for representation. And he unfortunately passed away within this past year at 76 years of age. But he had a really terrific long career and was a wonderful, wonderful guy. He devoted a lot of his time, free time, to the sport of teenagers and young people coming up through the ranks trying to make something of themselves. And he was very often appearing at conventions, youth conventions, etc. I'm going to tell you a particular story that you may or may not ask me about, which shows a little bit of what it's all about to be a talent agent. And that is the story of a talent by the name of Eddie Albert. Eddie Albert, your viewers will remember as from Green Acres, a television series. And this was while I was working at MCA. He was a client of MCA's. I didn't know him. I had nothing to do with him. But it was 1964, the year, it was a political year, and presidential year. And they had from the convention, the Democratic convention, from the convention floor for 5 nights, the networks would televise the activities, as they have most recently, of course. And this show would be on all of the networks and be on for a couple hours. And they would advertisers would sponsor these telecasts. And I had see, I'm trying to remember the name. This advertising agency called Sullivan, Stauffer, Colwell and Bales, also known on Madison Avenue as SSC&B. I had done a good amount of business with them for various and sundry clientele, their products. And one day I got a call from the creative director from the let's see, it was they had bought time, the advertising agency, for one of their clients, which was the Thomas J. Lipton Company, Lipton Tea. And they bought time. They had 1 minute or 60-second commercial each night within the 2-hour telecast. And the creative director from the ad agency, who I'd done a lot of business with, called me and said, Harry, we need a recognizable personality. We're sponsoring. Our client has spent millions of dollars buying advertising during these 5 nights, and we're going to do. They have the buy is 1 60-second commercial each night, but it wasn't to be filmed or videotaped in advance. It was to be delivered live at the time of the telecast. And do you have any celebrities, male celebrities, who are well known, who we could put to work for this, for Lipton Tea? And I came up with a bunch of names. I was working at MCA at the time. And one of the names was Eddie Albert. I didn't know him personally, but he was a client of the office. The creative director called me back the next day and said, our client's in love with Eddie Albert. Ad agency creative people are in love with Eddie Albert. They want to offer the opportunity. Do you think he'll do it he'll do it? I said, he's never done television commercials before, but if you pay him enough money, it might be attractive enough for him to do it. What does he have to do? Come to work for 60 seconds of time, 1 night a week for 5 nights? It's not such a big job. Well, I went to his point agent at MCA at the time, who I said, might he be interested in that? He said, well, he's a classically trained theater actor. He works in theater, works in film, works in television, never done commercials. And the point agent said to me at MCA, if they pay him enough money, well, needless to say, I negotiated a deal for a lot of money. I mean, several $100,000 at the time, just for 5 nights, 1 60-second commercial. And the first night came. He was to deliver the first night of the convention, and he went down to there was at the LA Convention Center, and I went down there to support him, to be there with him. And I had since met him. I didn't know him real well, but I worked for MCA. I was one of the agents. Anyway, to make a long story short, he delivers the 60-second television commercial. He rehearses it. He delivers it on time. He does a great job as far as I was concerned. And he goes home. I go home. 11:30 at night. My telephone rings at home. Harry, this is Eddie Albert. Yes, Mr. Albert, what can I do for you? I said, I'm just congratulating you you did a terrific job today on that first commercial. He said, Harry, I hated every minute of it. What do you mean you hated every minute of it? He says, you got to get me out of the contract. Get me out of the deal. I don't want to go there for the next 4 nights. I said, but you've been seen throughout the world, throughout the globe, and people have recognized you as being a spokesperson and an image on behalf of Lipton Tea. If you don't do the remaining 4 commercials, they're going to think something's wrong with you, or that maybe the advertising agency didn't like you, or that you're whatever. I said, I can't get you out of the contract. You've signed the contract. Well, by the way, the negotiation, the deal was I wanted half the money up front before he appeared, and the other half was to be paid to him at the conclusion of the fifth night, the 5 nights. And I said, they've already paid you half the money. You've already banked it. It's probably earning money for you right now, I'm sure. What do you mean? I can't get you out of the contract. It's going to be impossible. You have a signed or written contract. Mr. Albert, please. He said, Harry, listen, you work for MCA. You're an MCA agent. You guys are capable of doing anything. I said, get me out of the contract. I don't want to work for the next 4 nights. Well, needless to say, I went to bed that night, sleepless. I spent a sleepless night. Woke up at 7:30 in the morning. It was the creative director from the advertising agency calling me. He said, Harry, we spent the past hour on the phone with our client, the Thomas J. Lipton Company. They didn't like the job that Eddie Albert did, and they want to get out of the contract. I said, what do you mean you want to get out of the contract? That's ridiculous. He's been seen by millions of people around the world. You've paid him half the money. You can't get out of the contract. It's impossible. Harry, we do not want to continue with him for the next 4 nights. And we went on and on and on, me arguing against it, what he had to say. And I said, listen, if I'm able to persuade him to not continue on for the next 4 nights, if I'm lucky enough to do that, I want 2 conditions to the contract to be met. Here are my conditions. Number 1, I want the other half of the money on my desk this afternoon. Number 2, I want you to send me a letter agreeing to hire another client of ours from MCA to do the remaining 4 nights of the commercial for the Lipton Tea Company. He said, Harry, whatever you want. We just have to satisfy our client. Anyway, they bought that deal, and I ended up with another one of our clients who was a commercial spokesperson. He was well known doing commercials by the name of George Fenneman. He was on the Groucho Marx show. He was an announcer, and he delivered commercials day in and day out. He was a terrific spokesperson. And that was the person who I provided to them and negotiated another large contract for him. And Eddie Albert said to me, I called him to tell him, Mr. Albert, I've been successful in getting you out of the contract. I hope you're pleased. He said, Harry, you're a magician. I'm going to call you Harry Houdini. He said, I think that's fantastic. I had a great deal of faith and confidence in you. I said, besides that, you have the other half of the money. It's coming to my desk this afternoon, or this evening, later on today.
I read that story in your book. I read the whole book, and that was really a funny story about.
I thought that would be an amusing story for you.
It is, and every story. This is what I love about your book. There's great stories, but there's also a lot of great lessons in that book. And ladies and gentlemen, Harry Abrams is not only a Hollywood icon, but he never bragged about his accomplishments in the press. He always made sure to keep the spotlight on his legendary clients. He not only gave his best to his clients, but he also gives to the community. Because Mr. Abrams has been on the board of directors of the Los Angeles Fraternity of Friends, a fundraising organization attached to the Music Center of Los Angeles, even a major sponsor of the annual Sundance Film Festival, a supporter of the Theater Arts Film School at UCLA, and many other organizations. And Mr. Abrams was also on the board of directors of Reprise, a nonprofit theater company that revived Broadway musicals for presentation several times a year at UCLA's Freud Theater. And you have to read Mr. Abrams' brand new book, Let's Do Launch a Hollywood Agent Dishes on How to Make Your Business and Career Take Off, is available everywhere. And Mr. Abrams, I want to thank you so much for your time today and amazing stories.
Well, you're welcome, Mort. It's a pleasure to meet you, and I hope I haven't bored your audience here.
Not at all. Not at all. The stories are fantastic. And again, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Abrams' book, Let's Do Launch, A Hollywood Agent Dishes on How to Make Your Business and Career Take Off. Again, it's available everywhere, and I encourage you to get a copy. I've read that book from cover to cover and enjoyed every single page. And for all of you, I want to thank you for watching. I'll either see you at the movies or from the red carpet.